Hi there, Ischa here, and welcome to the Higher Life, where I take concepts that are considered esoterical, spiritual, and new age, and show you how you can apply these practically to greatly improve the quality of your life, or at least to feel more empowered in your life, to create a set of conditions that allow you to live free of suffering, free of pressure, free of this relentless desire to be more, have more, get more. I really feel like we need to dive deep into the heart of this kind of seeking, because as a transformational life coach, I've noticed over the last sort of 15 years of being in the field that I've been in, this sudden explosion of insight and clarity and advice and help and models that are really geared towards improvement and advancement and fulfilling our highest potential. And trust me, at the beginning of my coaching journey, training to be a coach and also working with clients, I was really enamored, really aligned with this kind of rhetoric, this idea that we have this untapped potential, and as an individual, our journey in life is to play big, to escape the smallness of our lives and to be big and to play big and to bring our full selves into everything that we do. And it sounded really exciting. It was exciting. I worked with, so many fabulous coaches at the time who I trained with, worked with, ran workshops with, who have been dear friends to me over the last 15 years. And we all were really caught up in the excitement of possibility, of who we were going to become and how we could help other people really become the best version of themselves. And I kind of had a bit of an awakening, I would say, since then about the validity of this kind of messaging, and is it really what we're here for? And is it not just another way of hooking us into some kind of idea that fundamentally we're flawed, that we are not enough, and that we need to do more work to buy another product, to engage with another set of ideas about how we can be better than we already are, or have a better life than we already have, or have a better relationship? I think you understand where I'm coming from. And there are so many beautiful teachings that I have engaged with over the years that have been born out of this seeking to be better, do better, have more, to show up in our fullest potential, in our full power in our lives. And I think showing up in our full power is a valid goal to have, or a valid intention to live by. But then it brings us to this core question of what is power? When we're talking about living in our full power, if we're talking about accessing personal power, it always brings us back to what do we really understand power to be? And I think that, aligning with Carolyn Mace, who is a teacher that I just really took so much away from her work. I really got a lot of value out of her teachings around archetypes and around our relationship to power and sacred contracts. And I really align with her idea that, that power is something that we need to really get close to. We really need to unpack as a species, I believe, but also in our individual lives, because the misconception that power is something that we have, that we use, that we own, that we have over other people, is really what has kept humanity caught in a very dysfunctional relationship with power. And this plays out with lots of power plays, power imbalances, power abuses, conflict, violence, and more subtle stuff that goes on in our everyday lives. These power plays that we have within our own sense of self, the victim self, the high potential self, these parts of us that are always vying for some kind of ownership over our energy in our lives. And I think through the work that I've been doing on my own relationship to power, but also working with clients and through the courses that I've been developing, I've come to understand that power is very different, I think, to what we've been educated to believe it is. So in this session, I want to really dive a little bit deeper into the feminine version of power, and it's kind of building off last week's lesson where I was looking at what's another way that we can look at feminism that takes a non-gender approach or a non-political approach, where we really step into the human feminism, the feminism that no matter what gender you are born into, you have a birthright to access and to apply in your lives. And if I was going to really nut it down, I would say that power is really what nature is. If we look at the way that nature operates, that it operates in cycles, in seasons, in births and deaths. It operates in extremes, so that in those extremes it creates a middle ground. Nature's power is not forceful in the way that human power is forceful. It's not something, nature doesn't wake up and set a goal and then put all their energy towards that goal. Nature doesn't wake up and think, I am deficient and therefore I must spend my life resolving that deficiency. Nature doesn't wake up and think, I haven't done enough. Nature has always in the present moment doing its thing, operating in a very natural way. It's going through the motions, and as it goes through the motions, it creates all these diverse landscapes and experiences. And really, we are also nature going through our lives. And as we move through our lives, our bodies change, our energy changes, our emotions change, our thoughts change. Everything that we think we are is constantly in a state of movement, and it's constantly expressing itself. And that is power at its core. It's this process that we are in, and it is empowered in some sort of way by a higher power or by an energy system that I think as human beings we haven't fully grasped yet. Even though we are made of that energy, we still have a kind of separation from it where it's something we think we can control. And this is something that is really important in the work that I've been doing over the years. Is, we were very much educated as coaches, and I think it is a more common understanding is that we can't look outside ourselves for power. We can't look outside of ourselves to resolve this experience of lack, or this experience of not being good enough, or somehow this uneasiness and agitation. We need to look inside ourselves. But that also has a little bit of a blind spot to it, because the idea is, okay, if the power is not out there, the power must be within me. I need to change myself from the inside out. I need to take those negative patterns and transform them into positive ones. And all that heavy energy, heavy focus that was on the outer world, that expectation for the outer world to deliver a set of rewards or a result in which you feel better about who you are and you feel right. There's a rightness in the way that you experience yourself in your life, has now been directed inwards. And boy, is that a tough experience. I know I've been in it for a very long time, where suddenly it's all about change your mindset. Learn to think positively, use affirmations. You have everything you need within you. It all becomes about internally focusing on so-called inner resources that you can then manipulate to create the result that you're looking for. And the result is usually to absolve yourself of that kind of agitation or uneasiness that comes from not feeling like you're enough. So you can see how the goal or the intention or the seeking is still driven from this sense of deficiency, whether you're looking outside yourself or internally. And I think having moved in a number of different spiritual circles, I think that, in the corporate world, where I've also had quite a bit of experience, in the corporate world or in the material world, we're looking outside ourselves. That's where people are still really vying for that result in their material life, whether that's your professional life or any type of activity that you're undertaking out there, to kind of give you that sense of certainty or self-assuredness that you're okay. That's one version. Then there is the other version where people are, pursuing their inner power, their inner world in this really rigorous way, in which they really fundamentally believe they can transform, fix themselves from the inside out. And both of those have a certain despairing way about them. I think that if you've been in either of those paths or both of them for quite a long time, you do bump up against despair quite often, because there's some part of you that just realizes it's futile. The futility is the intelligence, right? Because if we realize it's futile, it signals that this is not real power. power. We think it's power, but it's not power. And the futility is simply educating you on that simple truth, that the power that you seek, whether it's outside or inside yourself, is not genuine power. Because in both these scenarios, the power is in the I. You think it's you personally that has to do something, that needs to fix something, that needs to learn something, that needs to take on a new idea or model or go through a different coaching process in order to actually be able to achieve that outcome. And there is the futility. Now, if you're doing anything in your external life or internal life that is simply because you enjoy it, that is, it brings you some kind of joy, like for me, doing these videos and really exploring how the way we think, the way we behave, the way we feel creates our reality. That's something that I've always been fascinated with. But really what I've been fascinated with more than anything is, how can I just feel okay? All I want to do is really enjoy the moments that I have in this life. And the only way that I know I can do that is to find this genuine acceptance with things as they are, and to understand that I am not actually the creator of my reality. I am part of a whole system of people who are creating a reality, and there are patterns that run through me that play out, that play up into this reality. So it's not as simple as I can just simply work on myself and then everything in my life will change. Now, a really good example of this is, I think, I've recently been diagnosed with breast cancer, but over my life I've had some serious health issues, one being very close to an autoimmune disease where I was completely burnt out. I've been through recovery for issues with alcohol and drugs, and now I've been facing this breast cancer diagnosis, which I hope is not really serious, at least at this point, but it does bring up in me often this thing of, okay, what have I done wrong? And in the breast cancer world, or in cancer, and I worked a lot with Louise Hayes's intelligence way back, there's this idea that if there is a disease in you, there's some kind of belief or thought pattern that is working through you, or that you are doing to yourself that creates the cancer, some blind spot. And I'd like to kind of tweak that. I don't actually think that I am personally responsible for the illnesses that have shown up in my body. Absolutely, there is conditioning that I have gone through in my life that has me thinking and acting and using my creative energy in a way that absolutely would have played into creating certain sort of conditions in my body, in my mind, that have facilitated this kind of disease or illness. However, if we look at something like breast cancer and autoimmune diseases, they are very much prevalent in the feminine. That is, in the feminine aspects of our body, in women, because women do manifest more strongly in the feminine version of power. So I call it like care cancer. Breast cancer for me is care cancer. It's this idea that we have a misguided understanding around care as a form of power. We mistake care with love. We mistake worry with care and care with love. And we need to really be able to flesh those out and discern between the three of them. And I think in care cancer, what we see, or breast cancer, is a real abuse of the feminine, a devaluing of the feminine, in the way that I spoke to it in the last lesson on, what is feminism and what is feminine power. We see in autoimmune diseases and in cancer our cells not functioning correctly. There is our bodies are not functioning optimally. And it's not because I'm not a healthy person. I'm actually a pretty healthy person, and I've been doing this work for a long time, and I have actually quite a good mindset. I think that this is about the feminine itself not functioning in the way that it is supposed to, not being supported in the way that it is supposed to by the yang. The feminine is feeding the yang, or the action aspect of our experience, rather than the action aspect feeding the feminine. And this is a really important shift that we will be making in the next few generations as we move out of the era of progress or performance and into the era of potential, where the highest potential is not the highest version of our progress or performance self, but very much the capacity to cultivate kindness, gentleness and compassion with our experience of being human, our own humanity, and this experience of being humans with other humans and having to engage with other aspects and other life forms in order to thrive in this world. It's such an exciting, I think, topic. But it brings me back to, how do these key themes that I brought up really tie in together? If we can come to understand that personal power, which is something that I work with directly in my own life and when I'm working with clients, is very much about tapping into natural intelligence, intuitive intelligence. It is looking towards nature as a manifestation of power itself. This capacity for seeds to grow and to thrive, capacity for cycles and seasons, for night and day, all these things that happen effortlessly and that have a rhythm to it. This is what power looks like. Power does not look like turning inside and using your mind to focus your creative energy to create a particular result that you believe is necessary for you to feel empowered in your life. And that's why at Higher Life TV, I often take concepts that are considered spiritual or esoteric or new agey, simply because those concepts really speak to particular tools that help us live more naturally in a more wholesome and effortless way. Things like compassion, things like gentleness, things like empathy, things like God even, exploring what is God. These aren't concepts. They take us into the heart of what our true power is as a human being, and that is to live in the full expression of our nature, of being a natural being, an energetic being with qualities, with vibrations, with colors, with the kind of melody that we call our personality. And if you can really tap into this idea that it simply is to express the experience of your own aliveness in every moment. It's this idea that we're just alive. We have this natural vitality, but our bodies will show the signs of systemic disease or uneasiness or agitation or poor use of creative energy. So cancers will arise in people who are very self-aware, who have very strong or high vibrational patterns, simply because cancer is part of the system. It's letting us know that we are out of alignment with the natural pace of life, of natural life, that we are not living true to our cycles, that we are using our energy to feed a yang mindset, which is all about fix it, improve it, remove it, fill it, solve it. Even all the work that we're doing on depression and anxiety and mindfulness, there is a certain amount of that is really feeding into this natural desire, the desire to feel good enough. And the only way that one can really feel good enough is to no longer be, in a way, concerned with it. The simple act of letting go of that even being a valid goal really will bring you into a state of openness and awareness in which your true nature can just begin to thrive, and it has absolutely no agenda. I do use that scenario of like young kids in a playground where they dive in and they play and they meet with other kids and they don't particularly engage in any formal way, as in maybe don't share names or any information about them personally, but boy, do they get fully involved in the play. They're just in the moment, they're there, they're showing up, there's an exuberance. Even when they're screaming because some kid has done wrong by them, there's an exuberance and vitality in that screaming. Now, I'm not saying that we should all go around and start screaming, but I do think there is something to be said about understanding mental constructs and how they capture our attention and have us in a state of desire to be more or less or different, or to kind of compensate for some sense of lackness in our lives. And even when I was in recovery, we talk a lot about character flaws in particular recovery groups, and I was a little bit uncomfortable about that as well, because there are patterns absolutely that lead us into a form of self-sabotage. And if you have grown up in a highly dysfunctional family, which most people have, to be honest, or a dysfunctional society, there are certain patterns that will play out through you in your life because they are collective systemic patterns, not not because you're a bad person or you need to fix them. Of course, you can learn to work with them more skillfully, but you kind of have to breathe a little bit of oxygen around those patterns because they're bigger and more powerful than your individual sense of will. So all of these things, they really need time to delve into. You know, I started last week with really deep diving a little bit more into feminism because I believe that this will be the key theme for us to be exploring within our own lives, which is reclaiming the true power of feminism. The idea that we live in cycles, that we are a natural being, an energy being, and we have nature that is constantly educating and guiding us towards what genuine power in nature looks like. You know, and to let go of these false relationships and definitions that keep us chasing a power that simply isn't real. It isn't sustainable, and all it does is create a kind of self-sabotage and a societal sabotage and a species sabotage where we're constantly vying for some kind of piece of that power. So we're kind of vying for a piece of the mirage, and we're all in it together. You know, we have all this social media that brings that really alive in our lives. We can see how busy and noisy everywhere is overpopulated with advice, you know, with insight, with clarity, all these things that we need to supposedly be taking on and integrating into our lives. And of course you can, if it speaks to you and it's an enjoyable process, it's a hobby, why not? But if you think that you have the solution to other people's lackness, you're already caught up in this idea that that lackness is a genuine problem that that person needs to solve. And I know that we are educated to speak like that as coaches, to market our services as a way of solving other people's problems, but there is something really dysfunctional about that. And I think even as coaches, we need to be more accountable for the truth, which is, you know, that we can't solve other people's problems because those problems are not actually real. Those problems are tricks of the mind that have you thinking that there is some sort of perfection that we can all reach, some highest potential human being that we need to become. But if that is what is coming, it'll come in its own time and it's already been taken care of. The highest version or highest potential human being is not something that a human being will decide to become. It is something that will naturally emerge through humans being a manifestation of a higher power, and that higher power has it already in mind, so we don't need to do that work. All we need to do is enjoy the ride. And when I say enjoy the ride, I don't mean avoid pain and only seek pleasure. I mean enjoy being here in this short life that we have, and really living fully means expressing our love, our gentleness, our kindness, in at times our anger, whatever that is, but expressing it in a way that it has this humor to it, this lightness to it, where we get it, that it is kind of a great play. And the more authenticity we can bring to our role, but also the less reactivity, that's going to be such a beautiful life that you'll be living. So if you have to take away anything about power, live more authentically and work on less reactivity. If you're going to do any sort of work, definitely reducing the reactive aspects of your behavioral style is definitely going to create more oxygen and peace in your life. But again, those patterns are bigger than you. You know, I would love to be less reactive in lots of my primary relationships with my kids and my partner, but you know, I get it. Those patterns are strong. They work through me very quickly, and there's many times where, you know, that reactivity happens before I've had a chance to have any awareness around it. And in those moments, that beautiful forgiveness and gentleness and compassion gets to do its work in my life, and I seek out to apologize to those that maybe I was unfairly reactive towards, or at least to calm down and apologize to my inner child for letting that reactivity really take her into spaces and places that were unnecessary. So it's such a wonderful work to be doing, to really get engaged with what your true power is in this world, and you will realize that it is it is a fun ride. When you really start to explore what personal power is and what it's not, you'll experience a great deal of relief. You'll reduce a lot of those uncomfortable experiences of anxiety or anything that helps signal that you have attached to a false sense of power and you're driving yourself too hard. It's wonderful work, and there's lots of ways that you can dig deeper and have fun with this through the work that I do at the Higher Life Academy or many of the other beautiful teachers out there. One of them who I must speak to and recommend is Tara Brach. Her work really cuts to the core, and she's been doing it for God knows, maybe 40 years or 30 years. She's an amazing teacher, and her work on rain is something that I ground myself into every several days, especially now when I'm facing an illness. She is just the best ally to have in your life. So I hope this has been helpful. Think about care cancer. Is that something that is working through you in your life? Maybe you don't have cancer itself, but you notice that you're using your energy to somehow try to absolve yourself from feeling lacking or not worthwhile or not living up to your full potential. That is a form of cancer in itself. It's energetic, it's mental. It will have you feeling small and unhappy and prevent you from accessing the joy that comes when you realize that it's just a game and you can let it go. So until next time, take care and love life.